HMCS Haida is docked in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, as a museum ship. Honors and awards. Arctic, 1943 to 1945. English Channel, 1944. Normandy, 1944. Biscay, 1944. Korea, 1952 to 1953. HMCS Haida is a tribal class destroyer that served in the Royal Canadian Navy, RCN, from 1943 to 1963, participating in World War II and the Korean War. She was named for the Haida people. The only surviving tribal class destroyer out of 27 vessels constructed for the RCN, Royal Navy and Royal Australian Navy between 1937 and 1945, Haida sank more enemy surface tonnage than any other Canadian warship and as such is commonly referred to as the fightingest ship in the Royal Canadian Navy. Designated a National Historic Site of Canada in 1984, she now serves as a museum ship berthed next to HMCS Star, an active Royal Canadian Naval Reserve Division, in Hamilton, Ontario. In 2018, Haida was designated the ceremonial flagship of the RCN.
Design and description. The Tribals were designed to fight heavily armed destroyers of other navies, such as the Japanese Fubuki class. Canada chose the design based on its armament, with the size and power of the Tribal class allowing them to act more like small cruisers than as fleet destroyers. Haida was among the first batch of Tribal class destroyers ordered by the RCN in 1940–1941. They were ordered with modified ventilation and heating systems for North Atlantic winter service. Haida's design was modified after deficiencies were noted in the lead ship of the Canadian Tribals, HMCS Iroquois. Haida, as one of the British-built Tribal-class destroyers, was 335 feet 6 inches, 102.26 meters, long between perpendiculars and 377 feet, 115 meters, long overall with a beam of 36 feet 6 inches, 11.13 meters, and a draft of 13 feet, 4.0 meters. As built, the destroyer displaced 1,927 long tons standard and 2,745 long tons at deep load. Haida had a complement of 14 officers and 245 ratings. The destroyer was propelled by 2 shafts driven by 2 Parsons-geared turbines powered by steam created by 3 Admiralty Type 3 drum boilers. This created 44,000 shaft horsepower, 32,811 kilowatts, and gave the ship a maximum speed of 36.5 knots, 67.6 kilometers per hour, 42.0 miles per hour. The destroyers could carry 505 to 516 long tons of fuel oil. As built, Haida was fitted with 6 quick-firing 4.7-inch, 119 mm, Mk-12 guns placed in 3 twin turrets, designated A, B and Y from bow to stern. The turrets were placed on 40 degrees mountings with open-backed shields. The ship also had 1 twin turret of QF 4-inch, 102 mm, Mk-16 guns in the X position. For secondary anti-aircraft armament, the destroyer was equipped with 4 single-mounted 2-pounder pom-pom guns. The vessel was also fitted with 4 21-inch, 533 mm, torpedo tubes for Mk9 torpedoes.
Construction and career. Haida's keel was laid down by Vickers Armstrongs, Limited at their shipyard in Newcastle upon Tyne on September 29, 1941 with the yard number 41. The destroyer was launched on August 25, 1942 and commissioned into RCN service on August 30, 1943. She underwent workups under her first commanding officer, H.G. Dewulf, before reporting to the British Home Fleet at Scapa Flow in October 1943. After commissioning, Haida was assigned to the Royal Navy's Home Fleet. On November 15 the convoy JW-54A sailed from Lockheed. Haida was among the destroyers that joined the escort from 18 to 24 November 1943. On November 28 Haida was among the destroyer escort for the Russian convoy RA-54B, protecting it until it reached Lockew on December 9 without loss. The convoy JW-55B sailed from Lockew for Russia on December 20. Haida was a member of its ocean escort. The German battleship Scharnhorst was deployed to intercept the convoy. While the cruisers escorting the convoy kept the German vessel at bay, Haida and the other escorting destroyers shepherded the convoy away from danger until the German battleship was sunk by a British force. On December 23 the convoy was attacked by Junkers Ju-88 bombers, but escaped unscathed. Haida joined the escort of RA-55B on the return journey to the UK, which sailed from Kola Inlet on December 31 and arrived on January 8, 1944. Operations along the French coast. On January 10, 1944, she was reassigned to the 10th Destroyer Flotilla at Plymouth and took part in the Operation Tunnel and Operation Hostile sweeps in the Bay of Biscay and along the French coast of the English Channel. The 10th Flotilla, with the cruisers Black Prince and Bellona, formed Force 26. By April, Haida had sailed on 19 of the Operation Tunnel/Hostile missions. During the night of 25-26 April, Haida, with Black Prince and the destroyers Ashanti, Athabaskan, and Huron engaged the German 4th Torpedo Boat Flotilla comprising the German Elbing-class torpedo boats T-29, T-24 and T-27. It should be noted that despite the German designation as torpedo boat, the Elbings were essentially on a PAR with mid-sized Allied destroyers having just slightly smaller armament. T-27 was hit early and retired to Morlaix while Haida sank T-29 and T-24 was damaged before making St. Malo. On the night of 28-29 April T-24 and T-27 attempted to move from St. Malo to Brest and encountered the destroyers Athabaskan and Haida off St. Brieuc, which were performing a covering sweep as part of Operation Hostile. Athabaskan was torpedoed and sunk in the engagement. T-24 is credited with sinking the ship. Haida ran T-27 aground and set the vessel afire with shelling. The torpedo boat was later destroyed by MTB 673. 128 of Athabaskan's crew were lost. Haida recovered 44 survivors while 83 members of the crew became prisoners of war of the Germans and brought to France. Haida continued the Operation Hostile sorties in company of sister ship Huron during the weeks leading up to Operation Overlord. The 10th Destroyer Flotilla were part of the covering force for surface attacks at the western entrance of the English Channel during the invasion of Normandy. On 8–9 June, Haida was part of Task Force 26, which engaged the German 8th Destroyer Flotilla, comprising Z-32, Z-24, ZH-1 and T-24 northwest of the Isle de Bas. Haida and Huron combined to sink Z-32 in the Battle of Ushant. Following the fall of Cherbourg, the German E-boats were transferred to Le Havre, freeing up the 10th Flotilla. The flotilla was then given the dual role of covering Allied motor torpedo boat flotillas and search and sink missions against German shipping along the French coast. On June 24, while on patrol in the English Channel off Land's End, investigated a Liberator bomber dropping depth charges on a target. Haida and the British destroyer Eskimo began their own depth charge attacks after being informed that a submarine had been spotted. After several attacks, the submarine surfaced and attempted to run. Haida and Eskimo began to fire with all their guns and sank U-971. Haida rescued 6 survivors of the sunken submarine. On 14–15 July 1944, Haida and ORP Blyskaika intercepted a group of German ships in the Isle de Groix area near Lorient. The battle saw 2 submarine chasers, UJ-1420 and UJ-1421, destroyed, 1 merchant ship sunk and 2 others set afire. On 5–6 August, Haida was part of a force engaged in an Operation Kinetic Sweep. The force attacked a German convoy north of the Isle de Yeu and sank the minesweepers M263 and M486, the patrol boat V414 and the coastal launch Otto. During the battle a shell exploded in one of Haida's turrets and started a fire, killing 2 and injuring 8, knocking the turret out of action. Staying in the line of battle, the destroyers were engaged by shore batteries when they attempted to take on a second convoy and were forced to withdraw without doing much damage to the German merchant vessels.
Refit and northern operations. Haida departed Western Europe on September 22 for Halifax, Nova Scotia, arriving on September 29. The destroyer returned to Scapa Flow in mid-January 1945 after refitting to receive new radar. On March 19, Haida escorted aircraft carriers in mine-laying operations off Grænsund, Norway, and assisted in attacks on shipping off Trondheim from 24-28 March. On April 7, Haida escorted 7 anti-submarine warfare vessels from Greenock, Scotland destined for Soviet use at Vinga, renamed Severomorsk in 1951. The destroyer was among the escort for convoy JW-66 that set out from the River Clyde on April 16. Haida experienced one of the last RCN engagements of the Second World War when she escorted convoy RA-66 from Vinga from April 29 to May 2. The convoy was attacked in transit and Haida and Huron received near misses from torpedoes fired by U-boats. In the skirmish, 2 U-boats were sunk, along with the frigate Goodall, and the convoy escaped in a snowstorm. Haida and Huron returned to Scapa Flow on May 6 and were assigned to relief operations at Trondheimsfjord, Norway on May 17. From 29-31 May, Haida, Huron, the cruiser Barrack and the 5th Escort Group were sent to Trondheim to take over custody of surrendered U-boats. Haida, along with Huron and Iroquois, left for Halifax on June 4 to refit as part of Canada's contribution to Operation Downfall. They arrived on June 10 and Haida started a tropicalization refit, but it was suspended after the surrender of Japan later that summer. Haida was paid off on March 20, 1946.
Cold War operations. Haida was in inactive reserve for approximately 1 year but was prepared for reactivation in 1947 and underwent a refit for updated armament and sensors. This involved replacing the main armament, with the 4.7-inch guns removed and 2 twin Mk16 4-inch gun mounts installed forward and a twin 3-inch, 76mm/50 caliber gun mount installed aft. The ship was given a Mk63 fire control director for its guns. 1 turret was completely removed and replaced by 2 Squid anti-submarine mortars placed on the quarterdeck. A short aluminum mast was installed and the funnels were fitted with caps. Haida was equipped with Type 275, SBS-10, SBS-6, Type 293 and 262 radars and Type 140 and 174 sonars. While in refit, fire gutted the wheelhouse and boiler tubes burst later during speed trials. She returned to the fleet, still carrying the pennant number G63, in May 1947. Haida and her sister ship HMCS Nootka participated in exercises between the RCN's Atlantic Fleet and the United States Navy and Royal Navy over the next several years and were the first RCN ships to penetrate Hudson Bay in fall 1948. Haida was involved in assisting during the grounding of the aircraft carrier HMCS Magnificent off Port Mouton, Nova Scotia on June 4, 1949. In November 1949, Haida rescued the 18 members of the crew of a United States Air Force B-29 bomber that crashed in the Atlantic Ocean. That December, Haida was downgraded to a depot and accommodation ship in Halifax. The opening of the Korean War on June 25, 1950 saw Haida once again activated for war duty. She was converted to a destroyer escort and began refit in July 1950, which saw various new armaments and sensors and communications systems. She was recommissioned on March 15, 1952 and carried the pennant DDE 215. She departed Halifax on September 27 for Sasebo, Japan, arriving there on November 6 after passing through the Panama Canal. Haida relieved Nootka on November 18 off the west coast of Korea and had an uneventful patrol performing aircraft carrier screening and inshore patrol missions, returning to Sasebo to replenish on November 29. She patrolled off the east coast of Korea beginning on December 4 and took part with the destroyer escort USS Moore in shelling of a railway yard in Songjin as well as a coastal battery and North Korean troops. On 18 to 19 December, Haida attacked an enemy train but missed the escaping locomotive, which hid in a nearby tunnel, thus not joining the exclusive Trainbusters Club. Haida returned to patrol on January 3, 1953 and escorted aircraft carriers as well as performing coastal bombardments. On January 29, Haida entered the Trainbusters Club after attacking a train north of Rouen. The destroyer eliminated a second train on May 26 and also detonated a drifting anti-ship mine on her return to Penjiangdo. She departed Sasebo on June 12, heading west through the Suez Canal, and arrived in Halifax on July 22, 1953. Haida departed Halifax for a second Korean tour on December 14, 1953, passing through the Panama Canal and arriving in theater on February 5, 1954. Despite the ceasefire, infractions by North Korea and China were occurring, thus the need for a naval presence around South Korea. The destroyer departed the Korean theater on September 12, 1954 and headed for Halifax via the Suez Canal once again, arriving on November 1. Following the Korean operations, Haida embarked on Cold War anti-submarine warfare duties with other NATO units in the North Atlantic and West Indies. In May 1956, Haida, accompanied by Iroquois and Huron, visited cities and towns along the St. Lawrence River, making several port visits. Haida's aging hull and infrastructure proved troublesome, and in January 1958 she went into refit for hull repairs and protection for electronic equipment. Further refits in 1959 corrected various problems and she sailed for the West Indies in January 1960, however, further equipment failures culminating in the failure of her steering gear on April 3 forced her to return to Halifax. A hull survey in May found extensive corrosion and cracking, forcing her into dry dock for the remainder of the year. She undertook further repairs in June, July 1961 after further cracking was found during operations in heavy seas that March. More cracks were detected in March 1962, which forced a refit through February 1963.
Preservation. With the writing on the wall, Haida undertook her last assignment, a summer tour of the Great Lakes. She departed Halifax on April 25, 1963 with a mobile television studio on board. She undertook various public tours and weapons training during the tour. One of the individuals to tour her was a former RCN rating named Neil Bruce. Bruce foresaw that she was destined for scrapping and formed Haida Incorporated with 4 others as a means of attempting to acquire her for preservation. On April 30, 1963, the ship was paid off for the last time. Haida returned to Halifax and was placed in Category C Reserve at the Navy base HMCS Protector in Sydney. Crown Assets announced Haida would be scrapped in 1964 as part of cutbacks to the RCN. Haida Incorporated placed a bid of $20,000 and won possession on the grounds of restoration. After preparing the ship, the RCN towed the vessel to Marine Industries Limited shipyard at Sorel, Quebec, where she became civilian property. The Naval Reserve Division HMCS York provided a skeleton crew for Haida as she was towed to Toronto by 2 tugboats. She arrived on August 25, 1964 with guest of honor, retired Vice Admiral Harry Duolf, who was the destroyer's first commanding officer. Haida was restored and reacquired the pennant G63 while docked at the foot of York Street. She opened as an attraction in August 1965 at the pier on York Street. Initially, the City of Toronto had planned to build a serviceman's memorial park near the Prince's Gates at nearby Exhibition Place to link with the Haida preservation efforts. The organization Haida Incorporated ran into financial difficulties during the late 1960s and title to the ship was transferred to the provincial government for $1. In 1970, Haida was moved to Ontario Place at the west end of the Toronto waterfront, where it was turned into an attraction until 2002. The vessel was also used as a Royal Canadian Sea Cadets training facility.
HMCS Haida National Historic Site. In 2002, at the urging of Hamilton, Ontario MP Sheila Copps, Parks Canada purchased Haida from the provincial government and towed her, with great difficulty, from her Ontario Place dock to a shipyard at Port Weller for a $5 million refit to her hull. She was taken to a new home on the Hamilton waterfront and arrived to an 11-gun salute from 31 Royal Canadian Sea Cadet Corps Lion and her 12-pounder naval field gun on August 30, 2003, the 60th anniversary of her commissioning into the RCN. The destroyer is now a National Historic Site and is a museum ship on the Hamilton waterfront in front of Hamilton's Naval Reserve Division, HMCS Star. In July 2006, Haida was twinned with the Polish destroyer ORP Błyskawica in a ceremony in Gdynia, Poland. Both ships served in the 10th Destroyer Flotilla during the Second World War. The ceremony was attended by former crew members of both ships and the general public. The ship was visited in 2009 by Prince Charles, Prince of Wales, and his wife, Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, and, on June 29, 2010, at Government House in Nova Scotia, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, presented to representatives of HMCS Haida the World Ship Trust Certificate. In September 2016, the ship was towed to Hedel Marine to undergo repairs and upgrades. The repairs took until December 2016 to complete. In February 2018, Haida was designated the ceremonial flagship of the Canadian Navy, now marked by the hoisting of a Haida tribal flag. Source: Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/HMCS_Haida